Hello, this is Gareth Keane. I'm continuing the series of short videos on using loops in Visual Basic for applications. Now, in the last one we used the step function to output odd and even numbers, but there's another way it can be done if you use the mod function. So I'm just going to modify one of our existing programs here. What I'll do rather than losing it is I'll comment it out. I'll copy it. So if I select it, copy, and I'll paste it in like so. I use the Shift Insert button, or you can right click and use Paste. I'll get rid of the comment off the start with the quotation mark, and I'll get rid of the step. Now, one way you can actually test to see if a number is odd or even is you can use the mod function, and we'll show how that works as we run through it. So this will test for a even number. So in fact, if I set it to 1, it will test for an odd number. And I need to put an endif down at the end. Now, to code correctly, you should really indent everything. The existing if is now nested in the new if. So we now have a nested if block. The inner if block is this section here. The outer if block is that section there. So the inner if block is nested inside the outer if block. So it'll only be executed if the outer if block is true. Now, the way the mod function works, it works out the remainder of a division. So I mod 2. If we step through it line by line, I'll do F8. And it's this one I'm looking at here. So if I go F8 like so, I is going through the loop, it takes the value 1. So what we're saying, if the remainder, if you divide 1, the number I is currently 1, so if I divide 1 by 2, what is the remainder? Well, 2 goes into 1 0 times with the remainder of 1. So in this case, the remainder of that division is equal to 1, and therefore this if condition is true. That means we're going to go into the inner loop, the inner if block. So it comes in here. Remember, I has the value 1, so 1 is less than 10, so it'll add the number 1 onto the string. It skips to the end of, comes to the outer end of. Next I, so loop again. Now I has the value 2. 2 goes into 2 0 exactly 1 time with a remainder of 0. Therefore this condition is false because this function gives the remainder. The remainder of that division is 0. It's not equal to 1, therefore this is false. So this should skip down to the end of, and it does so. Next time through the loop, I takes the value 3. 2 goes into 3 1 time, once with a remainder of 1. Therefore the remainder is equal to 1, therefore this condition is true. Therefore it will come into the inner if block. 3 is less than 10, so it will add 3 onto this state output string. Skips to the end if, goes to this end if, and I will now be incremented. So I now has the value 4. I can just print this here, sorry, I'll print it here. You can see I now has the value 4 here. So that's basically the way it works. You can see that if it's an even number, this condition will be false because 2 goes into 4 exactly twice with no remainder. Therefore this condition is false. The remainder of that division is not equal to 1, therefore skips to the end. Next time I has the value 5. 2 goes into 5 twice with a remainder of 1, therefore this condition is now true. It'll go into the inner if block and it will add the number 5 onto the output string. Next time through, I has the value 6. 2 goes into 6 exactly 3 times with no remainder. This condition is false. Therefore it skips the nested if block and it comes down here. Next time I is equal to 7. 2 goes into 7 3 times with a remainder of 1. This condition is true. The remainder of that division is equal to 1. Therefore it'll go into the nested if block. And this works for 7. When I is equal to 8, that condition will be false, therefore it'll skip it, the inner if block. Now it's equal to 9, that condition will be true. 2 goes into 9 4 times with a remainder of 1. Therefore it adds the 9 onto the back onto the output string. I is equal to 10, the condition is false, therefore I'll add that output string onto the text box. So we go out and look at the text box, we see that it's worked well, it's worked properly again. And if we wanted the even numbers, if I can find the code again, if I want the even numbers, I don't have to change the starting value to 2, I can just take the code here, that's here, I can delete this lot and paste that in, the shift insert button, and now the only difference here is I put that to 0. So if I run through this very quickly, F8, first time through this I is equal to 1, 2 goes into 1, 0 times a remainder of 1, therefore this condition is false. Remember, we're looking for even numbers now. Next time I takes the value 2, 2 goes into 2 exactly once with no remainder, therefore this condition is true this time, therefore it comes into loop. So you see this condition will be true for values of I of 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. And therefore if I run through it I can just press F5 to finish it off. You can see it's worked for the even numbers. Okay, thank you for listening.